I want to introduce Steve Waldman, super interesting person. About 6, 7 years ago, after a longstanding career both at U.S. News and World Report, some other leading news organizations, he authored a very, very significant report for the FCC about really where the internet's going, what needs to be done to keep some controls over the internet, and how journalism's going to play out over the next decade or so. And then subsequent to that, he's tried a number of really cool innovations. One down in New York, as well as lifepost.com, which is a really new way of thinking about obituaries and connecting people to memories and their lives. And now he's at the forefront of a major initiative to really help support local journalism in across the country, and trying to initiate 1,000 new reporters in an industry that is literally just collapsing upon itself. So, Steve, did I miss anything? The fourth grade class? Anything else?
That was great. Thank you.
So, Steve, let's talk. Let's talk most recent first, and then we'll go back a little bit in time. Let's talk about this initiative. We see it here. When we started Providence about 7 years ago, and the Providence Journal had 100 people in the newsroom. They recently had a union action against against Gatehouse, and the head of the union here in Providence said there's only 16 reporters left in the Providence Journal newsroom, and it's cataclysmic to journalism in this market.
Wow. Well, that's amazing, and that's a great example. I mean, that's one of the worst examples I've heard, but only in degree. This is happening in almost every community in the country. It's a real catastrophe. It's happened, over the last 10 years or so, and it's one of those crises that's a little hard to get people to pay attention to, because if you're a reader, initially you're not totally sure what you're not getting.
Yeah, right.
Like the reporters and the editors have a good sense of like, oh my God, the stories that are out there that we're not getting to, or that we used to do that we can, or now we can't cover City Hall. We used to cover these two counties, now we can only cover one. But from a consumer, from a reader point of view, there's still lots of information getting thrown at them. But I think people are starting to become more aware now that, well, like not all information is created equal, and that it's a real harm to communities when you don't have basic information about your city.
Well, what news organization is going to? The Providence Journal is not going to report on the front page that they have 1/6 of the number of reporters that they had 5 years ago. I mean, that's not going to happen. And we're an anomaly. Go local in Providence. There are not a lot of go locals around the country that have had the longevity and have, I'll be a little self-congratulatory, the journalism chops to go after big stories. So, Trump did something that sparked a lot of interest by a lot of folks in national journalism, but in local journalism, I make the claim it's the best time to be the crooked cousin of a town council or city council member in almost any community across the country, because you're not going to get caught by the media with the lacking of journalism coverage in this era.
I totally agree, and it's City Hall, it's the Board of Education, it's the State House.
Yeah.
The State House coverage has been completely decimated. And we think about the amount of money that is spent on the state level has gone up and up and up, as the number of reporters covering state legislatures have gone down, down, down.
Absolutely.
So obviously that's a recipe for lack of accountability. This is, by the way, one of the reasons that this issue should not be ideological.
Yeah.
If you're a conservative and is generally, suspicious of what government does, the fact that there's no one watching government should freak you out.
Yeah.
And if you're a liberal who's concerned about, social issues, which justice matters, not.
We're a little frozen, Tone. We're going to take a quick 1-second break. We look like we're a little Skype stuck, and give us 1 second. All right, we're back. Steve, you there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. So let's talk about what your initiative's trying to do. You're trying to put 1,000 reporters across the country. Talk about where the idea came from and who's going to fund it.
Yeah, so this is really, it's a national service program for journalists. So the idea is kind of roughly modeled after programs like Teach for America, Code for America, the Peace Corps, City Year. And it's creating a core of journalists, emerging journalists, that will then get placed into local newsrooms.
Right.
And it could be any kind of local newsroom. Could be Go Local, could be a radio station, newspaper, anyone that can make the case for how that they're going to use this reporter well. And then the reporters, it'll be a highly selective thing where, really, really terrific people will get placed. And the idea is to get boots on the ground, to really get people into communities, small towns, cities out there, not New York and Washington, but actually these sort of what are sometimes called news deserts,
right?
Which are sometimes in the desert or in rural areas, but a lot of times it's suburbs, particular parts of cities. It's kind of very splotchy. And the idea is to just get reporters right down there into the community and have them do really critical, nuts and bolts, civically important reporting. In other words, the idea is not for them to go and run the Twitter account for the radio station. The idea is for them to go and do important stories that were not getting done about the waste treatment plant, or what's going on in the schools, or what's going on in the hospitals, things like that. And there's another element, because we view this as a community service program, as a national service program.
Sure.
In addition to doing reporting, these service people are going to be doing service as well. And this is still very early, but one idea that we've been kicking around is the idea that their service project might be working with local high schools or junior highs, helping the students with their student-run publications. And that would be a kind of nice way of tying it back to journalism, but helping in a really concrete way. And being out in the community, I think one of the things you all have done that a lot of places haven't, is recognizing that in this modern era, the reporters and the staff need to be out in the community and really interacting with the community. So where does the money come from? The key thing is where it doesn't come from. The money is not coming from the government. So this is different from AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps in that sense. It's going to be privately funded, and we're spreading it so that there's going to be some national funding and some local funding and some funding from the news organizations. We specifically have a little formula that half of it's going to come from Report for America headquarters.
Yeah.
A quarter comes from the news organization itself. So they have to put some skin in the game. This isn't just a handout. They've got to really want to do this. And then another quarter will come from the community, local donors, because they have to get in this too. Now we've structured it in a way where it's kind of a cheap date. Like it would only take $10,000 of community donations to field a reporter, which is a sort of achievable goal.
Right.
And that could get you a reporter, which is in places where there are no reporters, that's a big upgrade.
One of the things we see is that the journalism schools are not making the pivot, and they think they're making the pivot. That might even be the worst of all things, is they think that they're at the cutting edge because they're teaching them how to cut a video in iMovie, and they have a week to do it. And the reality is, you want to cut a video, you better have it done in about 45 minutes in the digital world today. Is there any thought process as to how we make it's a whole educational and cultural change, and if you guys are thinking about that to try and help the J schools around the country?
Well, I think that the key for us is what is actually going to lead these core members to be doing good work very quickly.
Yeah.
We don't view this as something where, like, it's a year-long term, and by the end of the year, they're doing good work.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And it's
That
a
they're
good
hitting the
experience.
ground.
Yeah, and it's a good experience for the core member, but it didn't do much good for the community. That to me would be a failure. We have to, in the selection process, choose reporters who are going to have an impact right away. And we've got to have a training system that will help them with it. And we're actually really excited about the training system. I'm doing this with an organization called the Ground Truth Project, which is based in Boston, that it had previously been more focused on foreign correspondents, but that's what they do. They train a new generation of journalists to be reporters. And then the other thing is we've gotten incredible reaction to this idea. And so like the Google News Lab is one of our partners. They're giving us some money and they're helping us. They're also going to help train. So one of the modules in this training is going to be Google teaching you the inside tricks of what do you do exactly to help, use local search algorithms to find what some really interesting stories might be in the community. And we were working with the Solutions Journalism Network to come up with ways of training people to not just write about problems, but write about solutions. So we really want this to be kind of a cutting edge, best of breed, training operation as well, that's going to pull from what we've seen work and not work. And some of that is from journalism schools.
Right.
But some of it isn't.
Well, it's interesting to hear so many and I'm going to say legacy journalism blaming Google and Facebook for the decline, and I actually see it as the opposite. First of all, Google's got a massive vested interest in journalism because without information to be searched, their ability to monetize, if people sort of realize, oh, there's nothing left on Google that's new and interesting, a significant portion of search goes away. And on Facebook might be the most efficient distribution structure in the history of information. We leverage it. We're broadcasting live, probably, 6, 7 different Facebook accounts right now, plus our site, etc. And that ability to be able to talk to 10,000 people every afternoon couldn't be generated any other way accordingly. So I think your comments about sort of getting the key players, and Google's one of them, and I think Facebook is another, involved in this education process is absolutely critical.
Well, and I think it's a relatively new thing that Google and Facebook are kind of paying attention to this issue, and I hope that they, put more money and effort into this. I guess my view on the kind of role of Google and Facebook is a little bit idiosyncratic. Like, I actually think Google and Facebook have played a really important role in destroying the local media model, but they didn't do it by being evil. They did it by having a really good ad product and local businesses. I mean, I'm a local business and I use Google and Facebook because it's way more efficient. And so people often will talk about the role of the internet and Google and Facebook taking audience away from local news. I actually don't think that's the big issue. It's the role of Google and Facebook taking advertisers away from local media that has really been the part that local media has not been able to recover from. And I don't think will, actually, because the Google and Facebook products are so good at it. So my message to Google and Facebook has not been that they're blameless so that they don't have to do anything. My message is you accidentally destroyed the business model through no ill will, and you have no financial obligation to do anything, but you have a moral obligation to do something, just in the same way that Andrew Carnegie had an obligation to give back and decided to build 1,000 libraries. He didn't have to. There was nothing like that said, because I made a lot of money on steel, I therefore have to build libraries. He just said, I've been a huge winner in this world, in this new industrial economy. I think I should give something back. And so my message to Facebook and Google is the same thing. is that not that you maliciously, tried to harm democracy, but that you have been the winners of this new media world. And the good citizenship thing to do would be to try to help strengthen democracy and make sure that citizens get the information that they need, in addition to whatever private, actual practical motive that they might have, as you were describing. I'd say even if they had no practical motive, or benefit from it, they should still put a lot of money into supporting nonprofit local journalism, because our communities are devastated without it.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit. I think, I'm going to use newspapers as the example. Newspapers for 100 years controlled information, opinion, and advertising. And guess what? The world changed, and they didn't, and they still haven't. And they haven't come up with very innovative advertising. And listen, we used to generate all our revenue from straight CPM-driven advertising, and now straight CPM advertising in our model is maybe 10%, 15% of what we do. And it's tied to much more sophisticated products and services. And guess what? It took us 7 years to figure it out. A lot of hard work and a lot of people working at it. So, we're in a capitalist society. I think you can get Google or Facebook for, a period of time to be benevolent, but at some point they're going to do what's in their best interest. And the best play, I think, for news organizations to leverage them is to say, hey, listen, without information, you're left with really fake news. If you don't support real news, you're left with fake news, and then you will lose. Both platforms will diminish in their audiences, and they'll just go somewhere else. Listen, if you just want pretty pictures, Instagram's a better experience than either Google or Facebook, accordingly. Talk a little bit about what the reaction has been since you made this announcement. Was the Pointer article kind of the kickoff? Was that the big...
The kickoff was actually at Google. Google has something called the Google News Lab.
Gotcha.
Which is a very innovative, program that they have where they help different local news experiments, and they basically decided to make Report for America one of their big projects for the year, which is amazing, and they're giving us both money and training.
Right.
And so they announced it at their summit. They have an annual summit of gathering various news people there, and that led to the press coverage. So it's a great way to do it, because when you're having a room full of news journalists and editors in one place, that's a pretty good way to make an announcement.
Right, it doesn't get any better than that, right? It's just pure oxygen. And when do you see boots hitting the ground on this?
Well, so we're doing a kind of small pilot year. We want to kind of do it small initially, just to get it right. We have already nailed down a pilot program in Appalachia of 3 reporters working with the Charleston paper and some others to stand up a bureau in Pikesville, Kentucky. A classic example. 10 years ago, there was a bureau. There was a reporter there. Now there isn't. And it's a very needy area in terms of information thirst. So that's going to happen first. And then we'll have a kind of small program in 2018 of about 12 reporters in a handful of news organizations. And then simultaneously, we'll be building out the full program with a much larger class kicking in 2019.
That's great. Listen, Steve Waldman, thanks so much for Skyping in with us. It's a great initiative. I think it's very exciting. It's literally one of the most innovative things that's going on in journalism in America today. And congratulations on taking this on. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we can have you back in a couple months.
I would love that. Thank you, and you should apply for some Report for America Corps members.
Thanks so much. Maybe we